Welcome back. Here are some questions that the members of the soccer football family seem to date unwilling to ask, mostly because they are probably convinced that there are no good answers. And I begin with just a few here. Who is in charge of the soccer football club? A good guess would be the person or people who fires the managers. Who should be in charge, and how should they become qualified? Who is responsible for club programming? Is there a difference between club and team performance? Who should be responsible for the performance of the leadership, staff, departments, and is there a need for the CEO? How do everyone know they are performing at their best, and who informs them? How does everyone know that they are performing well and at their best, and who will inform them? Welcome to the Soccer Football Whisperer Project YouTube channel. I'm Eric Williams, and I'm about to give you an introduction to this great project, but I'd like to clear the air first of all, just to let everyone know that I didn't just tell this ball to calm down, which it did, but that is not what the project is about. So you take careful note and you'll see where we are going with this. It's going to be an interesting ride, and you're going to be on this train for a long time to come. The project, which may be of interest to you, as you may have asked several questions pertaining to the development of this project, even before myself coming up with some of these answers. I'm sure you would have been asking the questions. And one of the first one that comes to mind is, who is in charge of the soccer football club? Is it the manager, coach? Is it the owner, general secretary? Or perhaps you could just easily go to saying that it's the guy who fires the manager, coach ad nauseum whenever he doesn't feel like he's going to win the next game. And so we have a situation that is quite untenable, and very little has been done about it. The performance management system, which would be required to allow the due process that the manager coach deserves to have in his job experience at any club or at any level, should be the one where he is granted a contract with deliverables that are measurable, that are clear, and that are doable. And to say the least, when we look at clubs, most of our clubs, we do not really have a leadership structure that is prepared to handle a performance management system that is fair and just to not just the coaches, managers, but to the public itself, the fans, and to the game, spirit of the game. And as long as we continue to, be really cavalier in the way in which we operate clubs, and we hire and we fire coaches, and we seem to just, keep going in this direction, I felt that something serious had to be done, and it would require a curriculum of really deep thought, and really a process where clubs could come up with the scientific basis for measuring qualitative performance, which is what usually is the bone of contention, that the performance of the team players is not up to what is expected because we're basing everything on the final results. Fair enough, you want to win, you have invested money and so on. But what is it that the clubs have done to put themselves in a sustainable position? In other words, we are on top for 2 years, 3 years, and then pop goes the weasel, and we do not see what has become of the good promising players, the great teams we have had in the past, and it's a continuing cycle that only a very serious performance management system and training for the clubs that will sort of change the culture and change the direction in which we have been going for years regarding the situation. Being a manager coach at a club is one of the most uncertain position to be in. Stressful, it is unkind, unforgiving, and also unscientific, and it is in its essence an unfair situation for the human resource component at the club. I am proposing a curriculum that is going to take care of all of that through the qualitative measurement of performance. We have the technology now to give us all the quantitative data that we need. How many steps a player takes, how many times he looks to the right, how many times he looks to the left. We can get all of that. And in my estimation, that's quantitative data that can be used by the club. It's very useful for the coach to know which areas they can step up in terms of training. But when it comes to the quality of the performance, there is very little in the literature, as far as I could see, that has attempted to do a comprehensive assessment and have come up with tools to manage the qualitative performance that we are so much looking for. Each club will have a few good players, and then that player is getting off the field and nobody is able to tell the player how well he did without a very long discourse. I have come up with a tool that will give you a score for that player, a universal benchmark that will give you a score for that player. As soon as they get off the field, they can be handed a sheet that tells them just how well was the qualitative aspect of their performance. That qualitative aspect requires human engagement to determine whether an accurate pass was a good pass or not, or whether the team was displaying what we have described in our book as the instrumental aggression that is required. And let me just say something on instrumental aggression, since I mentioned it so early, which really wasn't the plan, but let me go straight to it. This is where a team will have an opportunity to execute an aggressive attacking move that will end in the 6 yards box. Yet the goalkeeper, his own goalkeeper, ends up with that ball. There was a player at the point moving to get into the back space, and there was no ball forthcoming, although the ball was right next to the foot and could have been played. And that has gone on several times in many games, and that has been the cause for the ruin of many clubs and many careers. That split second moment when ball should be delivered. But it doesn't start there, nor does it end there. clubs are responsible to develop programs, to carry out programming, doing monitoring and evaluation, and employing and training people who can help to run the club. The manager coach comes and he brings what he is taking to the team, but the club must always own its own curriculum and institutionalize itself just like any other educational institution, where we know what we want, we can measure it, and it is international, it's across the board. Once we are meeting those standards, we know where we are. And so the Soccer Football Whisperer project is here, and we are inviting you to look at the main piece. It's the 100 principles for top flight soccer football club leadership, development, and quality control. It's a big name, big title, and it's a big work. 464 pages of material, but mostly there are qualitative performance tools that will measure the policies, that will measure the performance of leaders, that will measure the performance of committees, that will measure the performance of managers and coaches, volunteers, and of the players finally. There's a wealth of other information, a performance management system which will put everyone in that club in a category for performance that will be fair, and that they will be trained and given tools to execute their duties. The Soccer Football Whisperer project is also about building the new CEO, because whilst the board itself may not want to go to school as a group, may not necessarily want to go take all this training that is being offered, the new CEO position has to come in place to bring that to the clubs. Somebody has to supervise the manager coach. Somebody has to supervise the committee, the work of the committees. Someone has to look after the files of record. Someone has to be able to assure players that their welfare, their psychological status, their medical history, their ability to perform is supported by the club. And not the club just living day to day with getting new players that no one has sought to build. We don't want to get too negative, but this is where it is at. And finally, I believe that we have got to a place where something can be done with it. The following products are a part of the Whisperers program. And first, it's the book of 100 principles. Outside of which a club will not be able to reach its full potential. These principles that have been identified, if you're running a club and the club is not aware or is not consciously pursuing these principles, there is a high chance of the club not doing well.